This is Lady Anne, owner of KPNL Radio and hostess of the Caravan Library of Lore, and I support Tessa. As an experiencer myself, I have filed my own reports with them, and the professionalism and heart they have shown my case goes above and beyond. If you have had experience, I cannot recommend Tessa enough.
Hi, this is Ernie Hudson, Winston Zedmore from Ghostbusters. I want to let you know that Ryan Stacy, he's created the Experiencer Support Association, TESA. You can check them out at www.tesacan.org. Now, they investigate paranormal, UFO, and provide support to experiencers. But you can check them out at, like I said, www.tesacan.org and see for yourself if they're really Ghostbusters. I can tell you this, they are a non-profit organization. Good luck, have fun, and keep it blessed.
Good evening. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association. Tessa is a UFO, paranormal, and paracryptid investigation association. We investigate everything belonging to the global phenomenon linked to highly strange and unexplained experiences. We also connect experiencers with other experiencers, creating a safe, positive environment to engage and discuss this phenomenon without judgment, criticism, or retribution. From the land of the white rolling sands, from the southeasterly tip of Georgian Bay, to all of you listening around the world, as we simulcast live on KPNL Radio, we salute you. If you want to go back and listen to our previous episodes, go to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to be instantly notified when we are live, not only for these episodes, but every single element Tessa has to offer. On our website, tessacan.org, we have something for everyone. We have support for experiencers, data for independent researchers, and places to advertise for professional partners. This live portion of the show will run for about 45 minutes. We'll have a commercial break and then spend some time answering some of your questions in the comments. The show will continue immediately after on Patreon for our private members, so head over and become a member for the unclassified tier and receive additional content from this episode and so much more for only $7 a month. To all our Patreon members, you are awesome, and thank you for helping us heal the world. All proceeds go back into the mission and will continue to help us create educational content for you and your family. Become a member today by going to patreon.com/the Experiencer Support Association. Also, if you're joining us live on Facebook or Twitter, head over to our youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association if you want comments read out in the chat. We're only answering questions on YouTube, so head on over, hit that subscribe button, and start chatting. If you can't stay for the entire show, don't worry. Every Monday, we will upload the audio file to our podcast network for you to take us on the go. Okay, you ready? Let's get started. Good evening. Today is Thursday, April 1st, and I, Ryan Stacy, am your host this evening. Our guest for Season 3, Episode 10 is Alex Mistretta. Hopefully I don't do this wrong here. Alex is a professional cryptozoologist and a leading voice in Mokele-mbembe, Chipekwe, and Ennedi Tiger research in African cryptozoology. He is an expert in Bigfoots, especially in Eurasian Almastys and Yetis. He is also a leading voice in the mysterious African X. His knowledge and experience extends to South America's Grande, Mongolia's death worm, among others. He is a veteran of several radio shows and television programs, an aficionado of skiing and bodyboarding, a lover of superheroes, horror, sword, sorcery, and ninja movies, and an explorer, writer, researcher, and I can attest to this, an incredibly stubborn individual with questionable social skills, and he's simply an international man of mystery. Alex, put on your tinfoil hat. We're about to go down a rabbit hole. How are you doing, and how did I do on that?
I'm doing great, and your pronunciation was perfect. Right on.
Right on. Thanks for helping me with that.
Yeah, you pronounce Bigfoot weird, but you know.
Oh yeah, you can't blame a girl for trying. Come on. So, man, let's dive into it. Like, where you've been gone for a little bit. Where have you been? And what have you been doing? And what's your role with Tessa now? And why?
Well, I've been skiing, but aside from that, I decided to step back a little bit with in terms of Tessa. Not quit, step back, kind of focus on the things I do well, which is, you know, the cryptozoology stuff and be an advisor and that sort of thing, you know, instead of having a more bureaucratic, you know, ambassador role, which is really not my forte. And part of that, I think and again, me stepping back has nothing to do with Tessa. It has to do more with the paranormal community as a whole. I feel like I've been banging my head for so many years, trying to be progressive, trying to really go for answers, trying to push and push and push. Mm-hmm. And I get so much pushback and I get so angry about it that I wanted to kind of step back from being involved from the day-to-day within the community type of thing, you know, focus a little bit more on just, you know, doing, you know, my work and what's important to me. So I got tired of being pissed off every day, if I'm going to be honest about it, you know?
You know what, man? So, I envy that. And I feel that. I've recently been getting bantered from it as well. And, you know, that's what Tessa's about too, though. We're here to take that heat. So let us take that heat. You do what you got to do. Get that work, get that data, right? That's you know, less bitch and more work, right? So that's good, man. Very good. So what is your position then now? What are you, what are you doing?
In terms of with Tessa, you mean, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm an advisor still with cryptozoology, you know, so I help out with, and, you know, obviously I'm still here to help out with the manual for ufology, whatever, anything you guys need. So yeah, basically so I'm like a free gun for hire.
Yeah. Well, I'll help you with that. You're still on the evidence review and intellectual development unit, which is our IRADU team, which is our annual report kind of, review and weigh in on the unknown cases. You are still a credible expert on the cryptozoology events that we get, right? And you're basically our hack for immediate information when we see things that we can't explain, because a lot of that stuff looks kind of weird.
Yeah.
So that's good. Okay, so I can't pronounce all those words off the top of my head without reading it. So let's just skip to the one I do know. Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Where is Bigfoot? Is it a male or female? And what is it actually?
Well, I look at Bigfoot a little bit differently than just the North American Bigfoot, which is, you know, Sasquatch Bigfoot is what we call out here, right? I look at it more as a global phenomena, right? We're looking at a global species as far as I'm concerned, which is why I spent so much time focusing on making links with, you know, Eurasia, Africa, and all that sort of thing, you know, because if we're talking about biological species that's bipedal, it had to come to North America from somewhere, just like we did. So there has to be a link to the old world on some level, you know, and that's how I define Bigfoot. To me, it's not a monster in the woods in North America. It's not a sighting. It's not something you see. It's a biological species that speaks to particular that speaks to history, to anthropology, to biology. It's a clue to further knowledge of our world. It's a much bigger concept than just the monster that most people kind of associate with Bigfoot. So I look at it as a much bigger idea.
Is there any human connection? Like, are we related to it at all? Is there on a biological standpoint?
Well, ultimately we have to be, because most of the evidence point to, first of all, we're primates, right? The primate family is us, the apes, monkeys. Our closest relatives as of right now is the chimp. So we're all kind of part of a big family. Now, recently, a television show with a bunch of scientists were out doing some work out in North America, and they found some primate DNA when they were looking into Bigfoot, which is the idea that I've been pushing for decades now, that ultimately we're going to find DNA of Bigfoot and it's going to say primate. And the reason I've always felt that it's primate, besides the fact that we have some hair samples that look very primate-like, obviously you can't determine if it's closer to apes or to humans just from hair samples. You need DNA for that, and that will come down the line. But if you look at it from a fossil standpoint, genetic standpoint, every species that's ever existed on Earth from 7 million years back to now that looks like Bigfoot, that have behavior similar to Bigfoot, has been either from the human family or one of our ancestors, or from the ape family. So, applying Occam's razor, you have to assume that from that standpoint, Bigfoot has to be part of the hominid family, which hominid means apes and humans. Hominid means just humans and our ancestors. Now, whether it's strictly within a hominid, meaning related to us or our ancestors, we don't know. I would have assumed that prior to this latest DNA finding. I wouldn't have expected it to be closely related to chimps or apes. I would have assumed it to maybe a little closely related to us. But again, one DNA sample doesn't tell the whole story, so that's still a possibility. So, primate, 100%.
Okay. And what about the intelligence level then? Like, if in comparison to, I guess, apes, humans, and Bigfoot, how would you rate who's smarter out of all those three?
Us. I mean,
us? Okay.
us.
Good.
Maybe not wiser. Maybe not wiser, but smarter. I would assume the intelligence level would be somewhere between us and chimps. Obviously, we've observed from behavior with Bigfoot that it seems to have a pretty high level of intelligence. And also, if you look at the shape of their heads, that receding forehead, which is something they share with a lot of our ancestors, which means that your cerebral cortex, which is responsible for human intelligence, isn't quite as well developed. Meaning that what we consider intelligence is probably lacking slightly from their standpoint, which makes sense because from an environmental standpoint, it's not something that they need. They don't need to know how to work a computer. They don't need to know how to drive a car. They don't need to know how to, solve equations. They need to know how to function in our environment, avoid us, And if you look at chimps, are so much smarter than people think. For example, they use tools, they make war, they have tribes, they communicate. So, they can learn up to 300 words through sign language. So, it's a fine line there. But I think Bigfoot is going to lie somewhere between us and chimps in the intelligence scale.
Okay. Is there any indisputable evidence other than how can we prove that he exists or it? You didn't answer that. Is it a he or a she, or is it both? I guess it would be both, right? It's going to be a
biological species. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, there's no indisputable proof. Otherwise, I guess we wouldn't still be here talking about it. But I think there's a lot of clues. And the latest DNA findings is a step in the right direction. There's also a study that an expedition that no one really talks about in Bhutan, which is next to Tibet and Nepal in the realm of the Yetis. This was a couple of years ago. They were looking for the Yeti, and there's a bunch of scientists and geneticists that went along. And they were using something called eDNA, which is something I've been pushing for the last couple of years. eDNA is environmental DNA, meaning that you can get DNA not just from hair samples or blood. You can get it from the air. You can get it from the water, anywhere a species has been, right?
Yeah. And
literally in the middle of nowhere, and they're looking for Yeti DNA, they found DNA that matches 99% human, but and which is different than what they found in the North American woods recently, right? That says more closely related to chimp. So that's intriguing, and I think we're going to need a lot more of that, before that mystery solved. And for the record, I do think eDNA can be used in a lot of areas, not just Bigfoot, all through cryptozoology, even in ufology and the paranormal. I think it's something that it's a weapon that we have now that can transform all these fields into,
Yeah, like, do they have any devices that the civilians could purchase that that could measure that? Because like in the paranormal world, we have those air thermometers that kind of to measure the temperature drops, or the drafts and leaks under the doors and whatnot. All that crap. But like, do you think is there a technology that exists that we could purchase as civilians?
Unfortunately, not. You have to know how to take samples, not contaminate the samples, and you have to take it to a professional geneticist because. One, it's very expensive. I'm honestly, I don't know how much it is, but from what I hear, it's pretty expensive. And you need the equipment that you can find at UCLA or any other, Stanford or wherever.
You would have to contain the environment too, because like in terms of contamination, like I know from crime scene and whatnot, like even to collect a print or any forensic evidence, you got to square it all off, block it all off. How do you do that with the air? How if you're standing in there and you're breathing, how are we not contaminating the air?
Yeah, I mean that's a brand new thing. I don't think they've worked that out yet. I think it's still easier to get water samples and and dirt samples than it is through the air. But I think the idea of getting through the air is mostly because there's air samples, molecules get thrown up in the air and you can capture those. But obviously, you still need something to compare it to in the database, so it's still in its infancy, and it's going to be a lot of false positive, a lot of false negatives, maybe, until we can really work that out. But it's a numbers game. The more we do, the more we get, the more we start getting a complete picture. So, again, I think that's the future of this field.
What's the closest you've been to a piece of evidence to support Bigfoot? Well,
twice actually. So the first time I was in Southern Washington, I planned this expedition about in 2015, and we found some prints.
Okay.
And I have one cast of the print which broke since then, and it was actually cool because we found some bear prints too in a neighborhood, so we had something to compare it to. And so what we found, so we were walking down kind of this path, and we saw some deer prints, And so we just kind of followed the deer prints, and behind the deer prints, you can see this huge, about 18-inch footprints that looked like a naked foot was kind of following it. So we assumed that whatever it was following the prey. And this was about 5 minutes after we found bear prints, so we can tell the two prints are different. And it went into a clearing. It seemed to have gone around in a circle, and then kind of seemed to have it kind of hightailed out of there, So I don't think it ever caught the deer. So to me, that was intriguing because how large the prints were. And I can't say it's Bigfoot for sure because we have nothing to compare it to, right? There's no visual sightings. We didn't have DNA or anything. All we had was prints and about 4 or 5 tracks. One was intriguing because it was, I'm sorry?
How big was the print?
About 18 inches.
Yeah.
In length,
What else would that be?
Yeah, first of all, maybe it was a worker's boots, that can give the impression of toes, but they seem to be toes there. So it was hard. Again, I'm very careful of evidence. I'm not going to say it was Bigfoot because I can't prove it. It's my hypothesis that it was, especially because it seemed to be following a prey. And there's also kind of like what we found where it seems to be like a knuckle in the mud. So he had rain, so the ground was kind of soft. And at first I thought it was just 3 toes that we could see in the mud. But the more I thought about it, and I shared with other Bigfoot guys, and it seems to be he must have slipped, maybe put his hand down, put his knuckle down and kind of dragged it, kind of like the 3 fingers. So I thought that was pretty intriguing. So that was my first close-up. The second one actually included a sighting. I was about 3-4 years ago, I was contacted by a production company out of Hong Kong, and I actually knew one of the guys, Chuck, is a UFO investigator, which I knew prior to that. And they asked me if we can go to Ohio, and do a Bigfoot show. And I said, yeah, because there's some really good spots out there. People I don't know. There's a lot of wilderness in Ohio that, that kind of feeds into Pennsylvania and where there's been a lot of Bigfoot sightings historically. So I picked out a couple spots, on the first day we didn't see a whole lot. We heard some noise in the forest, that type of deal. But it could have been anything big. And then, so the second day, we went out a little bit deeper. So we're about 20 minutes in at dusk. And we had some voice recordings I wanted to play out in the wilderness, which we did. and some alleged Bigfoot recording out of the Sierra Mountains, which is right here in California and Nevada. So we played that, and then we got a response. We got these howls coming back that didn't sound like dogs, didn't sound like coyotes. And, coyotes can be a little deceiving, right? It can be pretty freaky looking, as can freaky sounding as mountain lions. And they can sound very, very strange, but they're not, And obviously, having spent a little bit of time out in the wilderness, I know what a coyote sounds like. But I could still be fooled. But it sounded to me something that was like different. It was sounding bigger. And it was coming from about 60, I assumed about 60 feet down this hill, right? So camera guy set up on top of the hill, and I went down 10 feet at a time. So in the field, it's not like it is on TV. If you start running after something, it's going to be gone. You're not in your environment. If let's say it's a Bigfoot or whatever, a coyote, whatever you're running after, as soon as you start running, that thing is gone, and you're never going to catch it or see anything. So I go 10 feet, I wait, I look, stay quiet. I go another 10 feet, I wait, I look, and I got about 30 feet down when I saw something bipedal walk between two trees. And by then it was getting pretty dark, right? And obviously it was an area where I don't think anybody else was at. And I don't see why somebody was walking around in the dark between two trees. And then he never came out of that second tree, so I could tell it was hiding, So I started getting closer then unfortunately I heard screams back on top. And, what's important in the field is you have to remember when you bring people out and not as experienced perhaps, or a film crew, their safety comes first, You have to remember these are people. And I got a little worried, and this bears in areas. And one of the police officers told us there's actually mountain lions, incidentally, which they're actually not supposed to be in Ohio. They're supposed to be extinct. But the police officer that I ran into told me they were mountain lions. So I got a little worried. So I started running back up, and one of the girls on the crew was crying, and they said, we're hearing noise all around us, and we're looking in the darkness. You can hear footsteps kind of going around, to the left, to behind us, and like heavy footsteps. And it was so dark, I couldn't see anything. Even with the flashlights, I couldn't tell what I was looking at. And I stayed there for a while until he got quiet. And eventually, I decided to kind of hike them back out, just in case it was a bear or probably not a mountain lion. The footsteps was too heavy. And so we walked out of there, and that's all that we saw. So we heard some more howls afterward. In fact, when I was howling at it, it would respond to me for about 20 minutes. So I don't know what I saw. I can't say it's a Bigfoot or a dog man or whatever, It was strange. The circumstances were strange about it. All the heavy footsteps we keep hearing around us was strange. That's pretty much all I can say. And I can just compare it to what other people have experienced.
So you mentioned dogman. What's the difference between Bigfoot and dogman?
Mostly, the dogman thing's a little bit of anything that's not Bigfoot and weirder looking kind of gets classified as dogman. So it has kind of a longer muzzle.
Okay.
Because it looks like a traditional werewolf. It's got the longer ears. It also makes less sense biologically because a canid cannot be bipedal just because of anatomy, versus obviously something like Bigfoot that looks like a primate or is a primate can't very easily be bipedal, obviously. So, and it seems to have less of a region. Like there's a lot of places where there's dogmen, Kentucky, Upper Michigan, which has had, sightings for decades, but it seems that it doesn't have as much of a territory as Bigfoot does. It seems like it could be, people have seen him in England, people have seen him right here near Los Angeles, So it's a much stranger phenomena as compared to Bigfoot.
Okay. So leading into that, what is paracryptozoology?
So I obviously everybody that knows me when it comes to cryptozoology, and partly because I have an anthropology background, cryptozoology for me is everything that's biological, right? So from Bigfoot to Loch Ness to Mokele-mbembe to the Ennedi Tiger that you mentioned so eloquently in your intro, to sea monsters, whatever, right? But then we start getting into some paranormal cryptids or modalities such as Dogman or Mothman or whatever. I can't think of another one right now, but there's plenty. Or anything that's werewolf related or whatever. So that doesn't fit necessarily within. There's no place for these animals within the fossil record. There's no living animal today that looks just like a Dogman or Mothman. So there has to be another category, assigned to it. And that's what I came up with paracryptozoology, to differentiate between biological cryptozoology and things that have a bigger link to the paranormal world or to ufology even.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite paracryptid, I guess?
Yeah, it would have to be, I think, Dogman. I've been fascinated by it, and a couple years ago, I was in talk with somebody that claimed to have worked for the NSA. That had they had a lot of funding available, and they were going to fully fund my work and all that. And we went back and forth about 6 months, talking back and forth about it until the whole thing fell apart for other reasons. And they started bringing up Dogman within the conversation in interesting ways, like asking me questions that were, I'm not sure were just questions. They were like statement half questions. And it really started me thinking about that there's something more to Dogman that, and a lot of people within the government might be aware of it, and that started, it got real interesting for me. And even since then, I've been a little bit obsessed with it, And also, I had a report once I classified as Bigfoot, and now I'm not so sure. I was at a party, New Year's Eve party at Jimmy Church, the radio host. And this gentleman approached me. He's like, "Hey, man, I got a Bigfoot sighting as a kid in Upper Michigan." Remember, I mentioned Upper Michigan is where there's a plethora of Dogman sightings, And he started describing this thing that he saw with his dad and about, I think there's like 10 of them. He had a bunch of friends and they were camping. I think he was like 12 years old or something like that. I mean, real up close, he said he was like Bigfoot, but it's like he was strange because it was really skinny. And it seems to be, he was kind of walking funny and it was holding his hand like it was kind of hurt, type of deal. And it sounded so different in Bigfoot in so many ways, that recently I started thinking, what if what he saw wasn't really Bigfoot, but was a Dogman, And I can't quite get that out of my head. So yeah, I'm fascinated by Dogman at this point. It's such a weird thing. And I like it because it's challenging in a way because I'm so pro biology and reality, And Dogman really throws me out for a loop from that standpoint.
So you say Dogman's like a werewolf. So what's your opinion on werewolves then?
Well, I mean, werewolves like we see in the movies obviously don't exist.
Yeah.
Okay. The thing with Dogman, there's no transformation right from human to Dogman that's ever been reported. There's it seems to be Dogman all the time, whatever it is. Now, and then that said, though, there's a long history. Now, once again, when you've been in this field for a long time, you get lucky. People approach you with stories. And again, a gentleman that just came back from Afghanistan, or is it Pakistan? I don't remember now. He just did it. He was on his second tour or whatever, He's like, "Look, man, I got to tell you a story about some of the things we've seen up there." And this was an UPARS, it was a UFO talk at the time. So he started talking about UFOs, some of him, and guys from his team were seeing. He's like, I don't know how to quite say this, but there's a lot of talk, and my guys have seen this. I haven't. Deep in the hills, it's like this like dog-like bipedal type creatures, way up in the hills of Afghanistan and Pakistan. And at the time, I wasn't really that familiar with Dogman. This was about, I want to say 10 years ago, perhaps, And I started looking into the literature, some of the mythology from that area of the world. And they did talk about dog-headed people way back, in Alexander the Great times and all that. So there seems to be clues here and there that whatever Dogman turns out to be has been around for a lot longer, even, prior to maybe some of the werewolf legends coming out of Europe.
Would that be linked to Anubis, like the Egyptian Anubis, Jekyll, the dog there?
It could be, I mean, a lot of, mythology across the world, there's a lot of it's based on things people have seen, couldn't explain. And so they have to find different ways to explain it, So certainly, there's no direct causal link as far as I'm aware, but it's interesting that it's not, that dog-headed motif is pretty popular in the ancient world,
So, your opinion on ufology and I guess the industry, the ufology industry, science community, wherever you want to go with it, and paranormal, and I guess maybe talk about them separately and then try to bring them together if you can.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it should be together because UFOs, to me, by definition, is paranormal. And one thing I've learned from doing a lot of cases is that a lot of UFO cases and have paranormal modalities attached to them, whether it's poltergeist activity or, they function very much in the same way. So it should be linked from that standpoint. The problem with the extremes, it's like, I think it has been fueled by the political movement, especially here in the United States, where there's one school of thoughts where they're very selfish. it's about ufologists become about self-validation. It's not about discovery anymore. It's not about sharing with the world. It's not about progress. It's not about, making the world better through ufology. And those are very gullible, like conspiracy theorists, like QAnon types, have attached themselves to ufology and have pretty much almost destroyed the field, if we're going to be honest about it. And I hate that side of it. I hate it. But unfortunately, there's another extreme at work where now you have this, the science ufology, where they reject almost all evidence at this point, right? If it's not hardcore science, everything is rejected. And those, I have just as much issues with those guys, because usually those are the guys I butt heads with when I mention that we should be getting paid so we're able to go out and do real work, because there's so many areas around the world, such as the Indian-China border, Brazil, Puerto Rico, whatever, where ufology is and it's happening on a day-to-day basis. Things are always going on. So there has to be some kind of proof out there. And they reject all that because, I don't know why, because they think, well, if you start doing stuff for money and you start getting private funding or whatever, and you go out there, your research is tainted, right? Mm-hmm. And so nothing is getting done from either side. One side's actually completely crazy at this point. They're looking for a savior, whether it was, what's a Blink-182 dude? I'm drawing a blank on his name, or
Tom DeLonge.
Elizondo. Yeah, Tom DeLonge or Elizondo, or or Trump, who's kind of become the disclosure president in some circles, for whatever reason. They're looking for a savior to validate their belief system, and the other side doesn't want to have anything to do with any type of real research that, it's, and I think there's a fear there of things actually being concrete and, actually becoming, entering their lives in such a concrete way. So we're kind of stuck where there's so little work between that's willing to have a hypothesis and go out and not necessarily, believe in anything anybody tells them, but willing to go look into it and willing to spend money to go look into it, willing to, take a chance on something being wrong. It's like it's almost, I don't know, there's like two extremes, and there's no more middle ground, and that drives me absolutely berserk.
No, it drives me too, because I don't know, did you read my article about the Hynek ballet classification? No,
I haven't read it yet, actually. I kept meaning to, but
yeah, it's okay. Well, when you read it, you might appreciate that too, because I got a lot of haterade come out of that too, and it's just basically focusing like the same things as you said too, is that we need to focus on the data, and we need to stop putting walls up. We need to stop arguing with each other, and we have to work together. It's everyone's doing their own little thing, and they're all making a little bit of coin, and people don't want this. They don't want to share their money. They don't want to share their profit. So which means they're doing it for the wrong reasons to begin with. They should be, maybe there's positive intent in there. You can't really draw that out. So it's really hard. So how do people like us do what we do, or able to do what we do honestly, and receive funding at the same time, or push for that? Where's that? How do we do that smoothly without going into one of those subcultures, I guess?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I did, I wouldn't have, texted you a few weeks ago and said, I quit. I won't have anything to do with anything ever again, Yeah. Because I still have that answer, and that's what drives my frustration in a lot of ways. I'm almost on the mind now that it's going to have to be done privately, and which is something I've always tried to get that private funding, And in fact, I even had a call with an investor about a month ago, and we said we'll talk again after COVID gets better.
Right on.
It almost to this point, almost has to be a private thing completely outside the paranormal UFO community, not involving them or the traditional branches of that community at all, not involving producers that make paranormal reality or paranormal documentaries, but going with people that are completely outside the field that are going to be willing, to do something new and progressive. And the downside of that is if you go private, you might not always be able to share everything, and obviously that's a concern, because the whole point is to bring this to the world and improve, our place in the world. But if that's, at this point, I'm going to point, if that's the, what I got to do, that's what I'm going to do. I think that's the future is going to have to come through private funding. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to get it done.
It's when you share, because like we do our work privately too, and we're about to share our 2020 report at the end of the year. But up until we show something, it's been a lot of like talking about having stuff and not having, people thinking we don't have anything. And do we really need to prove it? No, we don't. Yeah. But our experiencers, the people we help, then the people you help. So for you clients, right, private clients, that's what we're, we don't really need to, who said it? Joel from UAP Research recently called it UFO porn. Or paranormal porn, just basically posted on the internet and everybody eats it all up. And so I guess for us, we have to keep doing it private, keep talking about it, show a little bit here and there. And then when you get the smoking gun, release it. Release it all at the same time.
Yeah.
What not to. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. You notice how my screen's been a little fuzzy?
Well, I'm on my phone, so it's kind of hard to tell. But
can you see me very well?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Do you see that little guy behind me?
Yeah.
What is that little guy?
You got a little gray behind you?
Yeah. Well, tell me about that guy. What are those guys?
You mean in ufology in general?
From a cryptozoology perspective, or paracryptid, like where do they fit? Where do they fit in that?
Well, I think for me they're strictly from the UFO related, so I wouldn't include them at all in paracryptozoology because they're obviously they're paranormal. They're half biology, half paranormal, right? But to me, they're so associated with the UFO phenomena that I would put them strictly in that category. But
that's assuming that they pilot the craft. We've never really seen them in the craft, have we?
Well, we don't know that. We just know the only correlation we can make is that cases that involve other aspect of ufology involve the grays, right? So again, we have to differentiate between correlations and things we can prove that we know for a fact,
Mm-hmm.
So we know grays are correlated with UFOs because if not, about 90% of those encounters, people are lying. So, which I don't think they are. So there's a correlation on some level, but yeah, we don't know what their real intent and what their, day-to-day operations within ufology is all about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I ever told you this, but I saw a film of one once.
Oh yeah?
No. Yeah. I don't know if I ever told this story on there, but
well, so tell it now.
This was years ago. Dr. Barry Taff, who's someone I work with on poltergeist cases, gives me a call. He says, "We have a poltergeist case. Can you go?" I go, "Yeah, come. I'll come. I'll meet you there. I'll come grab you." I don't remember what the instances were. So anyway, so we went there, and it started out as a typical poltergeist or ghost case, right? It had been going on for a while. Her dogs kept dying in the apartment. She kept taking pictures of like faces. Some of the best pics I've ever seen is a picture of like the lady. This was in Pasadena, in California, just sitting on a bed, and there's about a series of about 8 to 9 faces that started on her skull and went back until it disappeared into the wall. So we're getting this type of pics, and light anomalies and all that. And first, she was mostly worried because her son was freaking out and didn't want to live there anymore, and she was on her third dog that had died, in the apartment. And so we're going through, our usual routine and all that. And then she's like, "Oh, I got some pictures of stuff. I'm not sure what it is. Can you guys identify it?" And she shows us pictures of lights in the sky that we can't identify, or streaks. They're kind of above her apartment, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're much, too big and pronounced to be stars. So I'm like, well, this is a little odd. So now we're heading into some UFO territory. She's like, and she knew nothing paranormal. She'd never been interested or anything, She's like, and I got a film. And I'm like, wait, what? A film of what? She's like, I got this little guy in my bedroom that I took with my cell phone. So at this point, I'm like, okay, well, show it. There's 3 of us there. It was myself, Barry, and Jack, which was another investigator. I'm like, well, show it to us separately before describing it. So, so we can discuss it without being influenced by each other after we see the film, type of deal, which is how we work. And it was really dark, because she took it by cell phone middle of the night. The flash wasn't on. And it just looked like some little guy, that looked like a little gray walking around her bedroom. And I was just going, I saw it, the other two people saw it. And again, it was very short and brief, and that's what started me thinking that there's that link between UFOs and, the paranormal or poltergeist or ghost or whatever you want to call it, But unfortunately, she destroyed her phone, destroyed her, she went to church and it told us that we were Satanists and she was going to go to hell if she, so she burned all her evidence and we lost it all. And I'm still angry.
Oh, angry at her or angry at the church? Whose fault's for that? Who's at blame for that?
I think everybody knows I'm pretty angry at the church in general.
So you're a pretty angry guy, eh? Do you rate your anger at all?
No, maybe I should.
Well, on a scale from 1 to 10, how angry does this make you?
I can't even tell what it is on the phone, so.
Take a close look, man. Take a real close look.
Oh, it's Bigfoot. Oh, that's a 10, bro.
What's Bigfoot doing?
Nothing, because he's not there in real life.
No, he's holding the gray alien. So, so that's impossible. That will never happen.
No, I'm not saying there isn't a correlation between Bigfoot and aliens. I've never said that. But from an origin, and that's what I can't get people to understand about what I'm saying. So I'm just looking from an origin standpoint,
Yeah.
That where the evidence leads and what's the most likely outcome is that Bigfoot isn't some alien that came here and it dropped him off in a forest for no reason all over the world for the last 1,000 years, but it doesn't mean there isn't a correlation. There's an interest from one party to the other. I mean, and even when you start talking about paranormal abilities, right, people attribute to Bigfoot, which I think sometimes has to do more with our perception more so than something Bigfoot's doing, or perhaps it has, it's able to emit infrasound. But look, there are people like us humans that have certain abilities, right? So we have a connection to ufology, to UFOs, to aliens, because we're obviously all these contact cases. So there's no reason why something like Bigfoot would also from Earth, just like we are, doesn't have some kind of connection that we haven't been able to identify. But it doesn't mean that Bigfoot originated from wherever and is not an Earth species, because that's what, all the evidence is in that direction. It's not either or. Things aren't mutually exclusive, which is, I've been always trying to get that across, but people get so upset when I go straight to biology and science that they skip that part of what I've been talking about,
Have you done any research around the mythology with Enkidu from the Sumerian mythology, Epic of Gilgamesh?
Yeah, I have actually, and I think that, and I think that, well, my point of view on that is it very much ties into the Almastys in Eurasia, which is the Eurasian version of Bigfoot. Okay. Which is which I think back in the day is what the wild man of Europe used to be, right? The wild man they used to have in Europe, in England and France and Germany and all through, and and probably extinct obviously from those areas due to population today. But where today you have Almastys sightings, which are again similar to Enkidu, and you still have them on the border between Finland and Russia and the Caucasus Mountains, and all over Central Asia, right? If you follow the mountain ranges, that's where all the sightings are from. And certainly, into Pakistan, into those areas where Enkidu, would have lived back in the day. So I think personally that Enkidu represents the wild man, the Almastys, which is the Eurasian Bigfoot that people used to see in those areas, and is still there today.
Yeah, that would make sense. Like according to the Epic of Gilgamesh, though, he was sent down from the heavens. He was sent from Enlil. Yeah. So he is like one of the sky beings. So that's that. I think that whether, again, if you dissect into that, whether that part is true or not, that could be that link or that origin to where people are associating that connection to the UFO or ET. So again, it's theory within a theory, mythology within mythology.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing too, though, is, and again, I don't really do alien abduction. It's not really my department, but there's always this link with reproduction and genetics and all that. So if that turns out to be true, there's no reason for it that link and that interest from the UFO people, the aliens, whatever they are, doesn't go back to antiquity, So that's where that link can come from too as well, right?
And I was just going to say that's why we measure everything separately, and then at the end of the year we bring it all together because somebody in each of our fields, we all have an answer or a key to some of it because we're all looking for that unknown. Yeah. And if we can find a piece of evidence that at least identifies or concludes on our spectrum, that perhaps putting those 3 pieces together or 4 pieces, depending on how many branches you want to say we have, then we might be able to at least identify an entity and then go from there.
Well, no, that's a good point. That's always been my approach where you deal with the Almasty or Bigfoot from a biological standpoint, you deal with UFOs, and you just see where it leads ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
But when you have your hypothesis, it has to be something you can test, so you can go out and do work upon. Yeah. You can't jump straight from A to Z, and some of the things I suspect sometimes in my mind, it's not something I would ever say publicly because my stance as an investigator researcher has to be from a hypothesis standpoint, something I can go out and measure and test and investigate, So it doesn't mean that I don't suspect sometimes there's other things going on, but I'm not going to say it or go there because I don't have the evidence, to head in that direction. So
yeah, no, I agree with you. So, okay, we're gonna pause and head to commercial. Okay. Those of you that are listening, if you hashtag Tessa merch in the YouTube chat, you have a chance to enter into this month's draw, which is a bumper sticker that says "I am an experiencer" and a Tessa hat. The winner of last month's after commercial break. So make sure you hashtag Tessa merch in the comments. Okay, so I just want to. So we're going to give a message to our professional partners. Pardon me. Also, if you're listening to this live on KPNL Radio or a future podcast, remember to head over to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association so you can get the video that goes with this audio. Remember, you're listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association, and we will be right back.
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis and was really taken by his research. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada. And just as interesting, he really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. Note for starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them. If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
The same thing that draws aliens to our planet is the same thing that draws us to others. Exploration, curiosity, sustainability of life. That's why we go. It would make sense as to why they're visiting here.
Travis! Quit playing around, man. Get back here. Travis!
The last thing I remember was this numbing shock. Stunning sort of a feeling. Very powerful.
Get away from me!
I was just out of my mind with fear, just screaming the whole time.
It's been theorized that aliens prefer remote areas because they don't want to attract attention. Whatever it is that they're doing, they would want to do that in a less populated area. There are multiple accounts of the same thing from people from all over the world. People that do not know each other, do not live in the same cultures, and they're all looking up, they're all seeing things in the sky. So it would be naive of us to think that we're alone in the universe.
My mission is to assist and help those experiencing this phenomenon in such a way that they're able to continue and live with it.
and also in a way that it could be measured, quantified, and reinforced within today's society, so that way it could be accepted and no longer viewed way. One thing that I do value in people is the ability to sense and feel when something is right and when something is wrong. That is a natural ability that we all share. Now, when we combine that with the paranormal and ufological abductions or visits, I have this sensation that these abilities are connected. Not everyone can sense, not everyone can feel. However, those who can are typically connected with something that we cannot explain. And part of my research is not just to investigate the experience, but it's also to understand and study the experiencer, to find out what they have in common with other experiencers, to try to figure out what the actual makeup is in order to be on that spectrum. There's a lot of it happening all over the world, and I do not know of any other study that is focusing on the individuals as people, only the phenomenon.
Welcome back. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. If you're enjoying this episode so far, head over to patreon.com/the Experiencers Support Association and join the unclassified tier for only a few bucks a month. Your membership will get you at least an extra half hour of this conversation, along with a bunch of other perks for becoming an insider. That includes Discord, which is new, by the way. Also, if you have ever experienced an unexplained event involving the paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrials, Dogman, or any other paracryptid, head over to Tessacam/reporting system. The more reports we get, the more we will understand this phenomenon and how it affects our people. Let the others who have already reported be that example that proves that we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for these reports, we would not be able to do what we do, and we thank you. We are still here with the maverick cryptozoologist, Alex Mistretta, who disappeared and came back just in time. So we're gonna announce the winner from last month's draw, and then I'm gonna ask you one more question, and then we're gonna do questions from the audience. So if anybody has any questions on YouTube, ask them now. So I don't believe the person that won is actually on. She hasn't commented, but MS Mom, when you hear this, congratulations, you are the winner for last month's draw, $50 gift card to the Paranormal Hangar. And we fixed the shipping, just so you know. Thanks for bringing to our attention the outrageous shipping costs for America. We were not aware of that. We have fixed that. And you will be getting a promo code that gives you $50 off at the Paranormal Hangar. So thank you so much for participating. So those of you who are listening right now, hashtag Tessa merch in YouTube. Just like I'll do it right now so you see it. Hashtag Tessa merch. And you get entered into the draw. And you get to do this once in Patreon as well. If you're a Patreon member, you get 2 tries. But you do this once a week. And you will be able to win this bumper sticker and this hat, which I don't have. I will show you next week how cool those things are. And that's what you get for participating. And you can only do that live, just so you know. Okay, Alex, so my question for you, just because it's just the theme. What is the Easter Bunny? And how the hell is that biologically possible from a cryptozoologist point of view?
Well, it's definitely in the paracryptozoology category. You know, because for it to be able to get to this many spots around the planet, it has to have some kind of either teleporting ability or there's actually a full team behind it. There's actually more than one Easter Bunny. So we're getting to some conspiracy.
So is Santa a paracryptid too then? He's a human though.
Santa is like, one of those weird humans like Casper Hauser or, the Green Children of, was it World Force? Or I forget the name of the town. those humans that don't quite seem to fit within, so any other category. So I'll put that into paracryptozoology as well.
So how does a bunny lay eggs?
I actually have no idea.
Yeah. I figured out of all people you would know.
I don't look into it.
All right, so just checking to see if anybody's got any questions. Chantel asks, how probable is a unicorn biologically?
From actually possible. An animal of a hoofed animal cannot have just one horn like that. From what I understand, I'm not a big. That's not my department. I'm towards big cats, mammals, but other type of mammals. So from what I understand, it's actually an impossibility. But they didn't have. That said, however, they didn't have a woolly rhinoceros back in the Ice Age that did have one horn. It's called a Siberian unicorn. So it just wouldn't be a sheep-like kind of animal, right? It would have to be something else. So a lot of people think that the Siberian unicorn, as they call it, was actually influenced the unicorn myth. And but nothing poops cupcakes and sparkles.
Nothing. No. The squatty potty. Just remind me.
Yeah.
Okay. Scarborough Sasquatch Station says, Tessa Merch, right on, you're in the jaw. Why would the Sasquatch be seen entering/exiting from alien craft/UFO? Workers for the aliens are the Sasquatch being used for brute strength or another nefarious reason? There's a lot of questions there. So why would the Sasquatch be seen? So I guess in some reports that in his research, he's suggesting that I guess Bigfoot has been seen entering a craft. So what are your thoughts on that?
There are those reports out of Pennsylvania, for example, but it's a little bit. It's not. It's such a small part though of the data. If you look at it from a global perspective, for example, when you go over anywhere outside of North America, you have actually no sightings or reports of Yetis or Almastys with any type of UFOs or paranormal modalities. In North America, you do have some of those, and they do have to be explained. I don't know what the answer is, but again, it's such a small part of the equation that. And how do we know they're really Bigfoots? For example, a few years ago, I spent 4 days around Skinwalker Ranch, right, investigating some of the area and talking a lot of the Native American population around the ranch and gathering a lot of stories about what's going on and all. And there's a lot of people always talk about Bigfoots on the property, but that's actually not true at all. There's actually no Bigfoot sightings on the property. If you talk to people around the ranch, they'll tell you the only Bigfoot sightings are at Dark Canyon, which is about a couple hours away, which I've also been to. But what you do have on a ranch is you have these Bigfoot types that are coming out of these portals, right? People are reporting. But everything else, none of the behavior is similar to what people experience with Bigfoot sightings out, in the Pacific Northwest or in the woods. So it tells me that then anything that's kind of looks like Bigfoot, that's kind of, hairy, bipedal, people call Bigfoot. But what if it's something else that's completely different? What if there's something that's masquerading as Bigfoot, but that's not really what that is? Because again, all the cases you have where there's UFOs involved versus a traditional Bigfoot, there's a lot of subtle differences, and not just from physiologically, but the behavior is different, so I don't have a clear answer. I just think that there's something else going on that's different.
The other part of the question is like, what is your thoughts on I guess the Sasquatch or Bigfoot being used as muscle, I suppose, brute strength, to assist with the little gray men or gray aliens?
Sure, I mean, from a practical standpoint, I wouldn't see why not, right? Yeah. If you're gonna come to Earth, and if they've used humans as labor in the past, or some ancient some ancient ufologists guys believe, it stands to reason that they would use somebody else today. And I'm sure, obviously, if you have somebody that's bipedal like Bigfoot, that's relatively intelligent, it'd be a good source of manual work.